Lemma Fassi, Community and Infrastructure Planning Department, Hillsborough County.
Hi, everybody. Sierra Lepore, Hillsborough County Aviation Authority.
Van Catwa, Deputy Hillsborough County Engineering.
Adam Purcell, City of Tampa Transportation Services.
Hi, Jesus Perez Garcia with CART. Danny Collins with the Planning Commission staff.
Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff, TAC liaison, and chair, we have Michelle Jenkins online from EPC, but we have an in-person forum.
Excellent. Okay, well, since we have a quorum, that's a good thing. First is public comment. First, is there anyone in the room that we can speak to public comment? Don't everybody stand up at once. Okay, anyone online that wants to speak to public comment?
See if you're online.
Perfect. Okay, moving on. Next is the minutes. Any comments or corrections to the minutes from the May 4th meeting? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
I move to approve. Jesus.
Okay, second.
Lemma. Second.
So we have a motion by Jesus, a second by Lamont. Any further discussions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next is the action item. And the first one up is Elizabeth. It's going to speak to the FY 27-31 Transportation Improvement Program, or the TAC, as it's called.
Thank you, TAC. Elizabeth Watkins, EPO staff, here to present to you the Transportation Improvement Program. You'll recall that we presented this to you last time, so the presentation hasn't changed much, but we wanted to give you 2 bites at the apple in case you had any questions about the projects or process of developing the TIP. So as a reminder, the TIP is a program or a list of all federally funded or regionally significant projects that are programmed to advance in some phase over the next 5 years. We do this because it's required by both federal and state law. And at the core of it, its purpose is to just serve as an additional source of visibility to these projects. There are many things required for adoption, including extensive public engagement and outreach, working closely with our partners. We have to make sure that all the projects are consistent with the goals and vision laid out in the long-range transportation plan. And one thing that differentiates the TIP from the list of priority projects is the wish list. The TIP is not. The TIP is what is funded and what's budgeted. So a couple highlights about the TIP. As you may recall, there's about 180 projects totaling $2.5 billion across a variety of modes. It's very stable over the past few years. We expected to kind of see a program of projects about this size for Hillsborough County. So that was really positive to see. I won't go through all the projects in the TIP, but it touches every mode of transportation, whether it's bike walk projects, highway widenings, signalization projects, things for HART, things for the port, things for the airport, lots of investment to move people and goods. When you look at all those 180 projects, you'll see the vast majority of them are within what the TPO calls the state of good repair and resilience. So really maintaining the assets that we have. So there's a number of resurfacing projects. There's money in there for HART to invest in their fleet and bus stops. The other project categories, there are other projects related to that. But by and large, the largest share of the individual project types are maintaining assets that we have today. And when you look at the funding in the TIP, that $2.5 billion, you'll see that about half goes to major projects. So what we say when we mean major projects are highway widenings, fixed skyway transit, those big dollar value projects. Those are more expensive, so it takes up more of the budget. In fact, the West Shore Interchange and the I-4 express lanes are $1 billion together. So we weren't surprised to see that that's how the total funding broken out by the LRTP project categories. As we discussed previously, one of the things that the TPO has authority over are certain funding pots. So across the 5-year TIP, it's about $90 million. And given the TPO's prioritization process, you'll see a more of a even distribution across these project categories. And that's for a variety of reasons. So to jump into a few of the project highlights. West Shore Interchange, like I mentioned earlier, that started construction earlier this year, and that will go through probably the early 2030, 2035 until that's open for traffic. Our partners at the Turnpike are continuing to advance the Suncoast Parkway widening in the northern part of the county. And DOT is accelerating development of the 2 lanes, one in each direction on I-4 from I-75 to the Polk Parkway. And as we mentioned last time, there are 6 projects totaling about $32 million around the Hillsborough College area. As that redevelopment project is still, kind of in the works, these projects are put in the TIP to address whatever ultimate development will be placed there. So DOT is still actively kind of determining what these investments will be pending the land use decisions. But the 2 things they do know for certain is planning to widen this segment of Air Cargo Road and Tampa Bay Boulevard to have more capacity in those areas, as well as adding a signal at Dale Mabry and Steinbrenner, which is about here. So the rest of the projects are in there. They know intersection and safety treatments will be needed, but that money is kind of just being put aside as more details are confirmed for this redevelopment. Just wanted to bring a few projects to your attention, like what was going to start construction soon. So in fiscal year 27. So within the city of Tampa, there are some intersection improvements near Busch Gardens, near Annie Street and 30th. Rigid pavement reconstruction at Adamo and 34th Street. Repaving of Hillsborough Avenue in the central part of the city from Park Road to Central Avenue. And then a traffic operations improvement near the University of Tampa at Kennedy Boulevard and Plant Avenue. Then looking out into the unincorporated part of the county, mostly East County, a repaving of MLK from Gallagher to Oak Brook, as well as a repaving of US 92 from Eureka Springs to Onasassa. DOT is still moving forward to adding a westbound auxiliary lane on I-4 and a small segment from Bethlehem to Branch Forks Road just to continue to help move traffic on I-4. So this will still advance independent of those express lanes. And then at the intersection of State Route 60 and US 301, some intersection improvements that also include sidewalks. So close to I-75, I-4 interchange at the Mango Road and Old Hillsborough Avenue intersection, the county is working to put in a signalized intersection there. And then in South County by the new Moffitt Center, there are more intersection improvements planned for the intersection of State Route 674 and College Avenue. Plant City will see some new sidewalks come online around their middle schools. And then the last project I wanted to bring to your attention, because it's gotten some interest from the Citizens Advisory Committee, is that the I-275 widening from Hillsborough to Pierce, which is in our long-range plan, which is a priority project. This year it's also in the TIP, but there's no funding program to it. So if you look closely at all of these columns, you'll just see a bunch of zeros. And just in full transparency, I wanted to make sure the TAC knew that this project was in here. But what we've heard from Secretary Hall is that this project probably won't advance until like 2035. That's consistent with DOT has also put out their cost feasible plan. So not really much to see here, but again, in the interest of transparency, wanted to bring that to your attention. And this is just a snapshot of essentially DOT's long range plan, their CIS cost feasible that shows just that. That design should occur sometime between 2035 and 2040, and then construction is tentatively planned to occur sometime between 2046 and 2050. So we're getting to the home stretch with the TIP. We've mailed all of our flyers, put out road signs, did newspaper ads. We have this meeting, the CAC, and then it'll go to the TPO board for adoption next Wednesday. So the requested action is that the TAC consider recommending approval of the TIP, but I'd be happy to answer any question or comments you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? I have a question. So last time we talked about this there were projects that moved out and things that moved in. And there wasn't really a good explanation, and I'm not here to rehash that, but it looks like several projects added around Florida College. Were there projects that moved out because of that, or was that new money,
That's a great
so to speak? And
That's a great question, and I'll start it and we'll see if you have any other thoughts. My understanding of that money around Hillsborough College, that's not part of the SIS reprioritization, they are separate, and I think from central office.
Yeah, Alyssa Joyner at DOT, those projects came down from central office and yeah, they weren't a part of that. That SIS reprioritization happens annually and kind of shuffles around those projects. And these didn't come out of that or move anything else out of the TIP or anything.
okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Great job. Thank you.
Yes.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Sorry, if there's, just thinking about the airport projects that are in here, if things shift, from our perspective, if a project shifts from one fiscal year to the next, how does that impact? I don't know if it will. I'm just wondering, when we go through our project list, our capital program, what happens if we shift a project from one year to another?
Because we update the TIP annually, I think that would be
Just
after, yeah.
Each year.
We've never had a TIP amendment for an airport project changing.
Right.
So my understanding is that as that changed within the modal section of DOT, it would just be reincorporated in the next year's TIP.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion then.
I can.
My motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Adam to approve and a second from Venkat. Any other discussion? Nope, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Elizabeth. Next on the agenda, same presenter, imagine. Elizabeth is going to speak about the crash mitigation and congestion management process.
Thank you. So we are bringing to you today the final draft of our crash mitigation and congestion management process. As you may recall from when we brought this to you last month for just your feedback, this is a federally required process for the TPO to be looking at congestion data, identifying hotspots, both for congestion, safety, and resiliency. So that's what we have, and I'll introduce Hightow from Cambridge Systematics, who is on the project team to walk you through the slides.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hightow Yu. I'm with I'm senior associate with the Cambridge Systematics team. We are supporting this crash mitigation and congestion management plan process. So my presentation today, I will talk about the kind of the overview of what is the CMCMP project, and then I will present you some of our results for the congestion, safety, and resilience hotspots, and then I will give you some quick overview of the case study and strategies. So as Elizabeth just mentioned, what is the CMPs? Congestion management plan is a federally required process for all the planning agencies across the United States to provide accurate and up-to-date information on transportation system performance, to assess the strategies for congestion management, and to meet the state and local requirements. For this effort, we also added safety component, which so that we can address both traffic and also safety strategies. So the first step was to define the CMCMP network, which will be our baseline to monitor, evaluate, and also implement strategies for this runway network. These are the most critical roadways based on our criteria, including, the traffic, also the connectivity and also the kind of its role in supporting the multimodal transportation system within the county. So based on our evaluation criteria, we have identified about 1,000 miles out of the 5,500 public roadway mileage within the TPO boundary. So that includes about 132 miles of interstate, 263 miles of arterials, and others are 614 miles on roadways. So once we have the baseline, we want to identify where the congestion is. So that's what we call congestion hotspots, where we want to identify which roadways are most congested. So we used a couple of measures. So the first one is the percent time of congested. So we have identified the roadways with 50% of the time or more that are congested. And we also evaluate the kind of the amount of delay, which we call vehicle hours delay. So we kind of pick up the most congested roadways with the significant delays. And last but not least, the travel time index, which measures the kind of the travel time reliability from driver's experience. So we have identified the least reliable roadway corridors within the county. So based on this evaluation, we have identified about 170 miles of congestion hotspots within the county, which you can see real quick from the map on the right. Those are the red segments are the congestion hotspots. The second one is the second is city hotspots where the traffic safety problem exists. We based on the data evaluation for the traffic crash data, the traffic frequency, the crash frequency, and also the severity of the crashes. We have identified the top 25 safety intersections, and also about 140 miles of safety corridors that have safety issues. So last but not least is the resiliency. So we really try to understand what if extreme events happens, which roadways will be affected. So we look at the storm surge 1 feet scenario. We also look at the sea level rise 1 feet. We also look at 500 years rainfall that's going to cause the flood within the county boundary. So based on this set of criteria, we have identified about 113 miles of resilience hotspot. As you can see, the red segments from the maps, those of the red segments are along the coastal area. Also, you can find some really corridors that's inland where the elevation is kind of lower. So we specifically focus on the congestion and safety hotspots so that we can know a big picture where the problem is. So we look at the corridors that are either congestion or safety hotspots. So as you can see from the map, that the majority of I-75, 275, and I-4, they are part of this, the bigger group of the hotspots, and also the majority of the Houston Avenue, Dale Mabry, Nebraska Avenue, and also runways near the USF. And you can also find some runways in the South County area where there might be some congestion and also safety hotspots. So once we have the next step we did was we focused on the roadway corridors that are both congestion and safety hotspots. So those are the kind of the corridors or areas that we should prioritize our resources or attention in the next couple of years. So we look at roadways with both congestion and safety hotspots, as you can see from the map on the right. So Hillsborough, 275, Dale Mabry, they have the longest continuous segments, and also you can find corridors that across the city, across the county boundary. So this gave us the kind of the unranked list of the corridors, which have both, congestion and safety issues. Let's skip this. So once we have all the data, evaluation, the next step is, we want to know where we should, implement strategies. But the first step is we want to kind of leverage existing or planned projects, so that we can identify which ways we not have any planned or existing projects. So we kind of overlay our hotspots with the capital improvement projects. I'm going to show you next slide. So as you can see from the map, these are all the CMP network we have evaluated. So the black corridors, the black segments are the roadways with existing transportation improvement projects. The red ones are the ones that do not have any plan or existing transportation improvement projects. So as you can see, most of the gaps can be found on the Hillsborough Avenue or Dale Maybury. And if you can look at the downtown, that zoom-in map, a lot of downtown streets or Selman Expressway, Kennedy Avenue, they don't have any plan or transportation improvement project right now. So another effort that come out from the CMP effort is this: we developed a strategy toolbox because we think that there's no one-size-fits-all strategies deal with different traffic problems. So we kind of developed a strategy toolbox to help planners, engineers to deal with different traffic problems. So this toolbox also comes with the implementation cost and also implementation timeline, so that planners, engineers can have them handy when they try to solve different traffic problems or safety issues. So I'm going to show you real quick for case study. So this is a case study of Hillsborough Avenue between 56th Street and Dale Maybury Highway. As you can see, the corridor highlighted in yellow. Based on our data evaluation, it was identified as both safety and also congestion hotspots. So, potential strategies that could improve the traffic condition or safety issue, that could be the implementation of smart transportation technologies, or improve the signal timing and coordination, or add more pedestrian crossings. So I think that's the kind of progress for the CMP effort.
So the requested action is for you all to consider recommending that the TPO board accept this update. As you see, it's very much kind of like a data-driven effort, and we expect to update this every year or every 2 years and share that information with the communities. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, anyone?
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very interesting. I have a few quick questions for you. What was your source? Apparently speed was the prime variable to identify congestion, like status, whatever, on roadways. But what's your source of data for speed?
So there are a lot of sources. One of the sources that we have been using is the RADIUS data, or ERIX data, which provides very detailed traffic speed or traffic travel time information. And there are some roadways that was part of the CMP network that did not have the data, so we kind of give some manipulation or use some different data sources.
Thank you.
Streamline.
Yeah, okay. I assume the source is similar kind of to Clear Guide?
Yes.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. With respect to safety, what was your threshold or KPI to identify that this corridor is tackling a safety, or you would consider it as a hotspot with respect to safety?
So that's a great question. I have to admit that our technical person who did this is not here, but I think we have analyzed all the intersections within the county. And yes, we have used some certain threshold, but what we have come up with is top 25 intersections. Those are kind of
Okay, got it.
intersections.
Okay. Interesting. And when you say congestion, how did you identify the period of your analysis? Because sometimes peak hour varies.
Yes.
I know there is a generalized kind of like peak hour or rush hour, morning and afternoon, but have you done anything to specify that the like peak hour in this area is more of like later morning, early morning?
We use the peak periods for both, morning peak and also
Nice.
afternoon peak, so, and also we did some kind of average, so that we can kind of, test. Picture of the full days traffic patterns.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's it.
Anyone else have any questions? So I have a question. This is great information, by the way. Thank you for that. But how is this going to turn into action? And this may be a Elizabeth question more than you. You know, is DOT going to set aside money to fund projects in this, or is it, you know, what are we going to do with this stuff?
That's a great question, Mike. It's something that we are very focused on because I think because we want this to have value, right? So
Absolutely.
the purpose of this was to identify these hotspots and set up this process. So ITAL covered this slide here that I know is a little bit difficult to see, where we overlay those hotspots with whatever is in the pipeline, whether it be from DOT side, the county, the cities. And those areas in red are the ones that don't have anything. So one idea that we had is maybe this could be used to inform our future unified planning work program to get studies in the hopper for that. And just continuing to, so one, identify future planning studies, and then two, to do this annual analysis regularly to share this information, because maybe there is something that could be fixed with a quick treatment. So I think it's twofold, getting studies up, but then also just continuing to spread the message of like, here's a problem and here's how it's changing over time.
Good. Yeah, it would be good. And I don't know, we can fix that here, but if there was maybe funding tied to it somehow. Remember, we used to have the areas that got funding because the air was bad or whatever, and
Right, CMAS.
yeah. I don't know if there's anything like that would be assigned to this, or there could be in the future, but it's definitely, because, I mean, there's no doubt, these areas are problems.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of effort on safety in particular, congestion too, but really they're related to some extent. So just a thought.
I think it's a great thought, and one thing we're keeping a close eye on is like federal transportation reauthorization. So maybe through there will be new pots of funding, whether it's CMAC or something else that could be used to address congestion, since that seems to be, you know, a high priority for the administration.
And I think there's one more thing. I think this study can help with prioritizing the critical locations. Like if you have limited resources, for sure, this is the case, you can prioritize and say, hey, the level of congestion here is worse than anywhere else, and we have more crashes than anywhere else. If we have money, we're going to prioritize. So I think it can help with prioritization as well.
I think that that's a great point, Lamont, and something that we could take into consideration with our annual list of prioritized projects and see if there's any low hanging fruit.
Exactly.
Or where are the highest congestion,
Exactly.
where maybe the city or county has something in their CIP that we could.
Fix both
Yeah.
problems. Or exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, I have a question on, was the Selman Expressways work program taken into consideration on this, or is that separate totally?
I don't think we had those shape files, Bob, but if we get with you offline, could we get them and update this map?
Sure, well, yeah, and I mean, we could even do it as a different color to show that, you know what I mean, that it's not in the same money pool type situation, but at least it will show that there are projects coming down the line to address some of those things.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll follow up with you after the meeting.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I guess we will need a motion for this one. And it's right there on the screen conveniently for you.
Recommend that the TPO board accepts this CMCMP update.
Side of it.
Okay, so a motion. The second, Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is this is not Elizabeth, the local roadway resilience countermeasures. And Matthew Pleasant with Applied Sciences. Well,
And I'm just here to
Oh, Wade.
introduce Matthew, Wade Reynolds, TPO staff. This has been a great study, and I think we've put together a great sort of toolkit of options to use, and these exemplary projects are a good start. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, Matt Pleasant, Applied Sciences. So you guys actually just saw this just a couple of weeks ago for status, so here to kind of present the final product. And so a lot of the presentation is kind of like highlights of from the guidebook, but I'll go through just a kind of as a reminder of what we were looking at. So the local roadway resilience countermeasures project identifies strategies to alleviate flooding and heat impacts on roadways and roadway users and assess their feasibility. So there were specifically 3 different types of impact that we were considering. The impact of that infrastructure itself. So heat and flooding, it just accelerates wear and age on our roadways. That's always been true, but it's just, of course, becoming more of a concern as these impacts become worse. So you might see an acceleration of the need for maintenance, the shortening of the infrastructure lifespan. And then there's the impact just basic level of service and our ability to use roads during certain conditions. And then the impact of drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians and comfort. So we wanted to speak to all 3 of these. So just to go back and kind of a project overview of the steps that led us to this point. We started out with a corridor selection. We wanted to find 3 representative corridors that were emblematic of these threats. Not necessarily find the solution for these, but use them as for strategy development, sort of developing ideas. We brought those to stakeholder committee made up of engineers and planners from the county, the airport, and had a really great discussion with them about what they're already doing and what they would like to do and some of the challenges that they're facing. Then we moved into strategy development and pulling everything together into a guidebook, which will be today. So the guidebook is meant to be very well illustrated, packed full of examples with costs. So you'll find a lot of those sort of organized by the threat, by heat, by tidal flooding, and rainfall flooding. And with each, it was helpful for us, we thought helpful for practitioners to develop a diagnostic framework. So if you're looking at an area that's facing these issues, how do you even begin to think about what might actually be a solution? And so, and I'll show a couple of examples of that. And then for each of those representative roadways, we presented it as a case study where we applied that framework. So this is an example for rainfall flooding. So it's kind of presented as a series of questions. Some of them seem really basic, like where is it flooding, but that's, you got to start somewhere. But and then where is the runoff occurring? Where are the bottlenecks in that stormwater system that's contributing to flooding? Defining costs. That's actually kind of like what can we actually affordably achieve? We're trying to think of a solution. And then evaluating maintenance. Is it simply a maintenance issue that's contributing to flooding? And then if it's in a coastal area, you'd also want to see if that rainfall is actually being impeded by tide elevations too. So that's happening in plenty of places already. So really, this is kind of trying to pull back the curtain a little bit. These questions get asked a lot with stormwater master planning kind of process that we go through a lot, and it kind of it's a process that's happened parallel to transportation planning, land use planning. There's plenty of interesting data that you can actually input to these that mirrors a lot of like the planning commission is concerned with TPO. And so part of what we were hoping to do with this project is kind of pull that curtain back a little bit, kind of break down that side a little bit. So I'll go through some of the strategies now. So rainfall strategies. One that we included here is a permeable pavement and permeable pavers. So there's actually kind of two different categories of these, broadly speaking. So permeable pavers have sort of a little joint between them that allows the water to sort of infiltrate between them. And then there's actually porous concrete where the water can actually absorb through the concrete. That's what that picture is, the lower hand side. That's a parking aisle in Martin County. They've installed that in a roadway. They actually elevated as well. As part of this flooding solution. And you can see these permeable pavers. This in the upper right is an alleyway in Ebor that was recently developed. That's full of them and probably helping contribute to their ability to store stormwater. I mean, the issue with these is that they are more expensive, about 10 to 20% more expensive than these traditional materials. So I have to think that they were using those to help them meet some of the stormwater criteria for the development, to help them with that reducing their pervious surface on the site. So it's kind of a smart use of it. And then in the lower left is True Grid. That's actually the sort of a proprietary name for that product. There's different things, different products, but it's like a molded kind of grid that's full of that aggregate material. You can see kind of parking lots that you go to. Bamboozle and Soto Heights has that, probably for the same reason. They were rebuilding that property, making the restaurant. They're probably trying to meet some stormwater criteria on their site. So the parking areas is full of that. So moving on to green infrastructure, this is a pretty big category that we're including. So kind of spanning anything from rain gardens, fire retention, and bioswales. We have some pretty good examples of this in Tampa specifically. I would say they're not widespread use yet, but we have some pretty good examples. So the El Dorado Stormwater Garden, South Tampa, it's that El Dorado. The city actually used some grant money from SWIFT fund to buy 2 repetitive loss properties to turn into a stormwater park. So repetitive loss properties mean that they've been flooded more than twice, I think, in the same 10-year span, and they've had to file for claims. So there's a benefit to them to kind of remove those properties. So from floodplain, they created this to help with stormwater in the neighborhood. If you go out to Scott Street, that's the picture below. That is all the way from Orange Ave over to 7th, across Nebraska. You have green infrastructure treatments all along that road. So you'll see things like this, these gabions that are acting as sort of a baffle material to help filter the water, help it infiltrate. I don't know the story behind that. I don't know if anyone with the city can speak to why that was done specifically on Scott Street. I know it was done with a grant, but I'd be interested to know if they're trying to fix some sort of flood issue there, but it's an awesome example. So the cities and counties that are really successful with their shape planning have done so in sort of comprehensive planning kind of approach. A lot of these kind of measures, they might be affordable in one place, but when we try to do it across the city, they quickly become, it's really hard to scale. So you have to kind of develop your network, your shape network. So why we included this one. The city of Tampa has a relief program that is trying to implement this. But we hope it grows. And I think that this is we look at the shade plan that's going on, it really boils down to trees and structures and trying to remove those impervious materials. So this is a big one. Just going about it in a comprehensive way. And this is a key strategy I want to highlight. You don't always have to implement things in a very permanent way. It can be kind of seasonal. So this is these are hydration stations. This is one the city of Tampa actually installed in East Tampa permanently, and also deploy these seasonally. This is a water bottle filling station in Edmonton that they have issues all the way up there as well. So they can hook these up to their hydrants. I don't know if the hydrant is usable or not. That's going to be the first question. Could actually find out, but that is a pretty idea. So I will say that tidal strategies are probably those tidal flooding areas are the most difficult to solve. They almost always involve some sort of significant investment. And so things like roadway grade elevation becomes a very serious discussion about how it's going to impact adjacent properties. And so that makes it, it impacts feasibility from a cost standpoint, because you're not just elevating the roadway, you have to look at how it's impacting adjacent properties too. And whether you will cause, if that positive trigger to from the properties. So it is here, it's listed, but we acknowledge that these are, there are cities and counties that are doing this in big ways, but it's, we don't present it as if it's easy to. Backflow preventers are just going to help with that sunny day flooding issue. It's almost like for this design, it's kind of a safety put on the outfall to prevent tidal water from flowing backward through your stormwater infrastructure and flooding the streets and causing that sunny day flooding. We do have areas in Tampa that are impacted by this. This is not a cure-all for flooding. It actually creates a correlated issue with rainfall. Enough sort of head pressure coming down to actually open up the backflow preventer. So it can actually cause some rainfall flooding. So our case study for this, for the tidal areas was at Dana Shores Drive. This is in town and country. It was highlighted in the Tampa vulnerability assessment as an area that has issues. It's actually managed by the county. And we kind of ran through this framework with Dana Shores. We looked at updated some of the stormwater modeling for the area, plugged in the new sea level rise numbers for the future year scenarios that the state requires as part of vulnerability assessments, and the current year flood situation with the 10-year and the 25-year flooding. You're seeing this because that's what it's typically designed to. Right, so look at that. The low point in the road is a stretch where Dana Shores Drive kind of turns east. And that is a known issue of shutdown during Hurricane Debby. And so you look at that, could you elevate? You could, but then you would run into those issues pretty quickly with the impact of adjacent properties. We looked at just how the stormwater infrastructure is intersecting and interfacing with this tidal area. So there's a series of outfalls there throughout the neighborhood. There's two that are kind of more limited in capacity. Basically what's happening is the stormwater runoff is trying to make its way, and sheet flows over Memorial Highway to the north and down into Rocky Point Golf Course, which is right there in the middle. And it's having trouble trying to get out from that area. And then we looked at whether you would want to move from a gravity-based stormwater system to an active stormwater solution to kind of open up the roadway. So again, you could do that, but the undertaking would involve kind of working with these private property owners to elevate seawalls, to create that constant kind of perimeter protection that you kind of get to make it something like a stormwater pump to work in the city. I'll try to move to the faster. And we looked at, whether you could acquire land. This is the same property. This is 2023 on the bottom. This is 2025 on the top. So people want to stay here so much that they were willing to spend the money to elevate their home to the height that you're seeing there. This is right at the Drive. So some of the things that we would recommend are reaching out to the Tampa Sports Authority, working with those county parks. So the Tampa Sports Authority owns they don't own it, they manage the golf course. The city of Tampa owns actually owns the property. Work with them to find some capacity there, and potentially at a county park nearby. And then long term assess and kind of identify potential application for that. And then this is the last section here. North Boulevard, this is our key corridor. It's identified in the Santa Heat playbook. It's being particularly sensitive to heat because of just the physical factors, but also social factors in this area. So we looked at how much right of way exists and how much it is paved, and how much planting canopy, how much canopy to actually introduce. And if you're in the corridor, you're looking at the new Publix that was built there. They did kind of build it with a structured canopy, and then there's gray hurdles there. There's gray hurdles are bigger, closer, a lot larger, providing shade today. So that's kind of nice to see. There are power lines on the southern end, so we look specifically at two sections of North Boulevard, north of 275 and south of 275 down to Cass Street. So this is the southern section. So TICO does vary a significant number of miles of power line. So it says every year, a lot of that is new development. So there is an opportunity as those apartments there potentially redeveloped to vary the power lines and create more space or trees. But looking at the existing kind of halberd trees there, there's some that are great examples. It looks on the left or the backside of the Publix. There's a great myrtle across the street at Lake that isn't doing so well. So there may be some opportunity here to look at whether there's impacted soil or something else going on that's hurting the streets. And then also simply looking at where can we pull out this impervious material. So so this pork chop island or Main Street, maybe that can go, you can get rid of the slipway. So those are just our main recommendations for kind of around. And there's this long ago, North Boulevard used to be 4 lanes. And at some point they made it 2 lanes. And then there's sort of that remnant of a merged lane there. It's actually gotten even narrower now because they have a raised curve so people can't make that left in the Publix. So maybe just get rid of the merge lane entirely, so we could have that sort of planted in the center. Or our main recommendations there. So yeah, that's that wraps up the project. We hope that it's useful for planners and practitioners in the public to use. And the point of it is to really try to get these ideas considered at the planning stage so you can actually get consideration. So these ideas sort of make their way in the projects that we see. With that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? So when you do this, since I don't see anybody else, maintenance cost is always a concern for us. I'll give you a couple examples, like the pervious pavements and some of those generally have a more intense maintenance needs for them. The planting trees, don't take this as I'm opposed to trees, but
Sure.
We have a significant problem of, in neighborhoods, trees planted between the sidewalk and the road, the curb. Because the trees grow as we want them to, and then they lift the sidewalk up, and it just becomes a big maintenance issue. So hopefully maintenance is being considered in all this.
Yeah.
Because we don't do a great job of funding maintenance.
Great. I can definitely attest to that too, just being formerly us with the school district, and it was always like, is this the school's tree or is this the city's tree or the county's tree? Who's going to be in charge of trimming this, and it became, we all love trees, but then it becomes like a management issue. But yeah, I think one of the only thing I can say is that it's just very true. Like we look at those permeable surfaces and impermeable or porous pavement, just like standard stormwater infrastructure, they're going to be subject to sedimentation, and you're going to have to service that. So it's still better than a permeable surface, but you will have to service that. So it's just something you have to consider early in the planning to make sure. I think one of the ways we kind of speak to the specific to the trees impacting sort of the infrastructure around it, there are subsoil surface structures you can actually implement to kind of have floating pavements on the top and allow those trees to grow without impacting what's up on them. So it all comes with a cost.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Can we have a motion then?
I move to approve. Jesus.
Thank you.
Second.
Sarah, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Next is the 2026 State of the System report. And since I don't see her, I assume Lauren is online. Lauren
Yeah.
Brooks.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me? See me? Via
Yes.
camera?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, we're in good shape. Um, well, thanks everybody for having me. If you recall, I was in front of you in early February, so we're just returning to provide you a quick update. What we've been up to in the last couple of months or few months. If you recall, sorry, there we go. If you recall, the purpose of the state of the system really is it's a data-driven analysis to understand the trends of the multimodal transportation system of Hillsborough County and how well we are performing. And then, of course, how well we are achieving the transportation vision as laid out in the long-range transportation plan. So really kind of an assessment of our system performance. So, as we all know, transportation system performance and reliability affects all aspects of our daily routines. So that's why it's important. Um, Again, the purpose of this report, it's conducted every 2 years by the Hillsborough TPO, along with the TPO's agency partners, to monitor, improvements to our system, and then where are we falling short? So to understand those outstanding system deficiencies. We are working on a report that will be wrapped up in June. And then we are also working on the layout of a companion piece or companion tool that will be built actually by Hillsborough TPO in conjunction with Hillsborough County. So it's going to be an online tool, of course, and it will help with the interaction of data. So you can zoom in, really dig into those details and just understand things a little bit better, overlap different layers. So we're hoping that the report will be useful, but then this online tool will really help folks to understand all of the pieces that compose our system, and then where, again, they match up in terms of those projects that will help improve the performance of the system, and then where you can see some of those deficiencies. We have structured our state of the system to include factors that kind of set the context of the information. So again, the county profile is very important, looking at not only demographics, but kind of the growth aspect. So we looked at permits, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But then, of course, our transportation network factors. And then also looking at how we're spending our funding and how the funding matches up in comparison to those improvements and then those system deficiencies. So I'm just going to run through some snapshots of some of the interesting facts that we have gleaned from our data analysis. So again, this is still a work in progress. So if you catch anything that needs further explanation, let me know. We have time to make some updates or revisions. So just to provide a quick snapshot of Hillsborough County demographics, looking at the median family income, we compared this to the counties that compose the Suncoast region, so the 8 counties of the Suncoast region, and then of course also the state as a whole. So you can see Hillsborough County kind of falls in the middle in terms of median family income. In terms of housing units with no vehicle available, this was kind of surprising, but Hillsborough County has the 3rd highest number of housing units with no vehicle available compared to other counties of the Suncoast region and then the state. We were able to gather residential and non-residential permits over the last 5 years. So this was kind of interesting. Of course, there's clusters of development occurring within the cities of Tampa and Plant City, but then also you can see there's quite a few clusters within South County. And then of course, the county as a whole, you can see a lot of growth happening or occurring. So in terms of our transportation network factors, we actually organize these by those project program categories. And I did want to mention that we worked closely with the Crash Mitigation and Congestion Management Process Team, or CMCMP team. So you may see some overlap in terms of the information, but really our job or our goal was to try to help tell the story of some of this this data, some of this information, kind of put all the pieces together, if you will. So we looked at planning time index, thanks to the CMCMP team who helped us kind of gather that information, but we focused predominantly on the FDOT roadway network. Anything with a PTI or planning time index with a value higher than 1.5 means less reliable travel conditions or more travel time on the roadway. So in looking at the FDOT road mile network, 61% you can see is in that red or orange higher than 1.5. It has a value higher than 1.5. So we have quite a bit of congestion, and that's what this particular index is demonstrating. All right, so moving on to state of good repair and resilience. So again, if you recall from that CMCMP presentation, they showed kind of that the roadway network that would be inundated by these particular scenarios. So storm surge equal to 1 foot, sea level rise equal to a foot, and then the 500-year floodplain. So comparing that with the evacuation route network, actually 9% of the evacuation route network would be inundated under this particular scenario. So kind of comparing these things together. Moving on to Vision Zero, or the safety aspect of the program. Obviously, I-275 has quite a bit of crashes. That's probably the top corridor. But of course, roadways that provide access to I-275 to and from also have quite a high number of crashes. So that those roads, of course, include Hillsborough, Waters, Fowler, Fletcher, Bush. So really prominent in the North Hillsborough County area. So we looked at bicycle and pedestrian crashes. Again, not surprising, the majority of the crashes occur within the cities of Hillsborough County, so Plant City, Temple Terrace, and Tampa. But there were quite a few crashes clustered along some of those roadways in South County, such as State Road 674, US 301, Bloomingdale, and Brandon Boulevard. So just wanted to note some of those interesting statistics. I wanted to thank Jesus for his hard work and providing us a lot of the information from HART. So looking at HART's active bus fleet, this might be a surprising statistic, but over half of the fleet, active fleet, and then this also includes vehicles used for contingency purposes, that fleet is operating past service life. So kudos to HART for still operating a great system, but with vehicles that are overdue. For the major projects for economic growth, we really kind of focused on those activity hubs of our area. So trying to understand some interesting statistics from our major partners, such as Tampa International Airport and Port Tampa Bay. So thanks to the airport, we received number of passengers within the last 5 years and number of flights, and it's amazing. Number of passengers has grown by 81%. 2024 was the highest year, and then in terms of flights, there was a 63% increase in the last 5 years. And then moving on to Port Tampa Bay, for the cruise industry, again, another staggering, amazing statistic. Passenger growth for cruise passengers has grown by 227%, just about. And then, of course, there's a steady rise in cargo movement for the port. So those are just some of the interesting statistics that we've come across so far. Again, we are wrapping up our report and the layout of the online tool at the end of the month. Then we'll hand it over to the Hillsborough TPO and the county to build the actual story map online. And then we're excited that it will launch in fall. So that's kind of the timeline of everything. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Any questions from the group? Okay.
So this one is a TPO project?
Yes.
So it's basically compiling the data from the different projects.
Yeah, I'll go to the link.
Hey, you got it, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I got this one.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Lauren said, the purpose of the state of the system is just to get to have different data sources on the performance of our transportation network. So we rely very much on our partners from some of that source data. And what we really want to achieve with this is just like tell the story of like what's going well and what might need some additional attention.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is this new? Is this updated annually or?
Every 2 years.
It's every 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Any-
really excited about the story map so that, you know, if there's something on our website that you all can use, like, hey, Sue's not to put you on the spot, but I know on-time performance is a big thing for her. So if we have, you know, reliability data and congestion, maybe that's something that you all could use in your planning purposes. So if there's anything to you where you've ever come across like, oh man, I wish I had this data at my fingertips, I feel like the TPO is a really natural place for us to house some of that data and make it easier for all of us in our plans and programs.
I do have one question on some of the, like, the flight trips and cruise terminal information. I know that we've been rebounding since 2020, since the pandemic. And I know everybody in the room understands that. I just wonder if there's could you add to this maybe a pre-pandemic point of reference that maybe we can get, like, you know, the 2019 figures, and then we can see how we've rebounded, because I think that's an important story. I've heard that a lot, that City of Tampa was one of the fastest metropolitan areas to rebound after COVID. So I think that's an important fact, but just give us a better base point of a comparison. So maybe grab some of the 2019 stuff. So I know, like, the cruise stuff, I'm sure, I think the cruise industry almost died in 2020. So.
And we certainly look at it that way too. Sometimes we kind of skip the pandemic years and really compare to pre-pandemic and in terms of passengers and operations. Many times.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to look at both, but we will look at 2018, 2019.
Yeah, great thought, Adam.
Yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, it looks like just from that graph, the later numbers is kind of, I don't want to say flattening out, but it's not growing as much.
Growing, but not as significant, right?
Right.
As it was
Right.
compared to 2020 when
Yeah.
things dropped. So if you were to look at 2019, it'll be up kind of in that range.
And that's where I was wondering is,
So
back
if
to
we,
Adam's point,
Yeah.
it was 2019 going to be slower growth, not 63%, but still.
Still growth, but you're right. The
Mhm.
2019 number would be up kind of in that range for the others.
so maybe as the team mentioned, this gives the perspective that we're going at a faster rate, and it's not true.
So that's where I think it tells a story that we recovered quickly.
Yeah.
But then some comparisons the crash condition.
That's a great suggestion. We can certainly add 2018, 2019. Just through the report, we were trying to have a 5-year, but understanding 2020 was a very weird time. So we really appreciate that feedback, and where that data exists, we will absolutely.
The other thing
Yeah.
is sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I think we're all on the same page. We were kind of heading in that direction, but as Elizabeth said, for consistency purposes, we were sticking with the 5-year period. But I think we all agree that is a compelling piece of information to have to understand the pre-pandemic conditions.
The other thing I was gonna say, thank you. The other thing I was gonna say is, when the hurricanes hit in 24, just understanding that kind of also impacted our community in the Tampa Bay region.
Sure.
So while we may have been growing at a faster place, that kind of was a little bump in the road, so to
Sure.
say, that really caused challenges.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, we saw it on the hard end too.
Yeah.
That 2024 was rough.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I like how you visualized everything, Lauren. I look forward to seeing the report.
Well,
But
thank
appreciate
you.
that. Yeah.
Any other
Any-
questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Lauren.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you all. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
Any old or new business?
Just one item, TAC will be recessed in July, so our next meeting will be early August.
Don't be so excited, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's it. We're done. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I can find it, but I'd rather go to the source. This is bad.